Welcome to Virtual Kicking Pro Film Session. Today, we're going to look at Dan Bailey. Dan Bailey's a longtime NFL vet who's played for both the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings. So today, I'm going to go in and show you his kicks and break down exactly how and why he's one of the top kickers in the league today. So let's go have a look. So what I've done is I've pulled up two different clips from a few warm-up kicks, but it's going to really show exactly his technique, is going to show exactly how he takes his step, his swing, his contact, his follow-through. We're going to break it all down right here. So the first thing I want to do is look at the kick on the left. I'm just going to run through and play it. Go ahead and have a look yourself. Notice his steps, his technique, and his swing. Good high straight ball. Let's run it back. What I notice is he's directly in line from his kicking foot to his spot of the holder, to then he's picking out a spot up here high and far. Luckily, he's in a stadium, so what he has the ability to do is really pick out something that's stationary. For him, it could either be a chair, it could be a letter, it could be anything. So let's just say that he's going to aim at a chair. From here, he's drawing a spot from there to the spot where the hold's going to be to his right foot. Everything's in one straight line. From there, he's now going to take his steps over. Let's notice what he does here. So he doesn't take his steps directly across the field. So if he starts here, he didn't come directly across the field. He actually took an angle. And the reason he took this angle here is to make a 90-degree line. So if you notice from the spot to where he took his 3 steps back and then his steps over, he's making a 90-degree angle. The importance of that is the same kick every time, anywhere on the field. Left hash, right hash, middle of the field. The same angle. So once he gets lines up, let's notice how he gets set in his stance. So one thing that he does is he keeps this plant toe pointed to where he wants that plant foot to end up, right there at that spot. The second thing he does is he has a nice lean on his body. It's a nice forward lean moving towards where the ball is going to be. Let's break down exactly what he does when the ball is snapped. So one of the biggest things about kickers is what are you exactly going to do for your jab step? Are you going to have a jab step? Are you just going to be a 2-step kicker? And if you do have a jab step, how far is it going to be? For Dan, and this is what makes him stand out over other kickers across America and in the NFL, is he's doing the same exact technique every time. So we just want to zoom in on that toe of his left toe. So he's bringing his foot up and putting it exactly down, the same exact spot every single time. If he brings it up here and actually moves any distance forward at all, then in turn, his distance to the plant foot, he's going to be too long. So it's vitally important that he keeps the same step every time. So he picks it up and down. And then from here, really zoom in on that foot. He's staying on the ball of his foot to project him, to propel him to the ball. Now let's look at his approach and where his plant foot ends up. So the first thing I see, we can zoom in, is his heel is in line with the ball right here. So his heel is in line with the ball. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're kicking off the ground, is they're behind the ball or even with the ball. Most top NFL kickers and college kickers have their heel in front of the ball. That way you're projecting, you're swinging down on that ball and getting up, kind of like a pitching wedge in golf. Secondly, I really want to look at the height of this foot on his backswing. So let me run this back just a second to get it as high as possible. All right, let's look here and here. Notice how high that foot is getting. And the reason that's good is the higher he can get this backswing, the more power, the more space he's going to have to come through and strike that ball and have power. This is what allows him to hit further higher balls without swinging harder. He just has more space because of his flexibility to swing through and generate more power. Now at contact, now let's look at his contact position. All right, it looks like his shoulders are right here. They're nice and parallel. they look like they're facing towards the ball, right? So he's keeping his chest facing the ball. Also notice these eyes are down where the ball is at. For a lot of you young kickers, you may struggle with crunching over. Dan does a great job of staying long and tall from his opposite shoulder to his kicking foot. Notice that distance. The longer and taller you are, the more torque you're able to generate. And let's see the finish. Very good. Even after he's gone, notice his eyes are still fighting to stay back. What that allows is for his shoulders to stay facing the ball. Because ultimately what you want to do, let's get rid of that one. Ultimately what you want to do is have this front shoulder be pointed at where you want that ball to go. Have that front shoulder pointed at the spot you made earlier when you were lining up. And then his finish, he does a really awesome job of getting downfield. And what I mean by that, skip, downfield, slide, coaches may use a couple different things, but notice how he transitions his weight downfield about a yard. Now he does turn his hips around, so his follow through ends up over here. For most people, when I would see them, I would say, hey, you want to work to stay downfield? Dan Bailey is an NFL vet. He knows exactly what he's doing. And what he knows is that from contact to that first yard in front of him, if that follow through stays straight like it is now, that ball is going to stay on that path, and then this follow through does not affect the path of that ball. But notice how he stays nice and tall, skipping downfield on his finish. Now let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see exactly how high that ball gets. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see, notice how high and straight that ball is. He's swinging up. He's not swinging out. Really try to work that height, because the higher that ball stays, the more likely it is to stay straight. Now let's go ahead. Let's slide over to the second clip. So like we said before, the reason NFL kickers and punters are in the NFL is because they're extremely consistent about the little things every single time. So we're going to run this back, and we're going to look exactly at what his stance looked like each time. And so I'm looking at a couple things. The first thing I'm looking at is his feet. His feet look the exact same here. All right. Second, this right arm. This right arm looks the exact same. Look at the shoulders. All right. Same placement. Even the tilt of his head is the same exact way in each one of these clips. So you know how he gets in kind of this ready position where he's there. Let's have a look here. You see it has almost this little shake to him, this little movement. Whatever you do the same thing every time. That's what makes you comfortable in pressure situations. He's locked in the same exact position each time. Now let's look at the jab step right here. All right, let's see. Picking it up and down, up and down. Now I'm going to freeze it here so we can see exactly how that plant foot looks. Exactly the same each and every time. There's not wasted movement. If you look at these arms here, they're the same exact way as well. When you're doing film analysis of yourself, you want to do the same thing as how consistent are you each and every time you kick. Make or miss, let's look at the body mechanics. So now I'm going to come to the contact and really look at that body position. A lot of you guys would struggle with your chest crunching down right here, really crunching down and then really trying to swing up. A lot of you guys crunch to swing up, and in reality, the taller you stay while swinging up, that's going to hit a higher ball, and that's what Dan does really well. Notice how long and tall he is. That way it allows the flight of that ball to be much higher. The trajectory is much higher, and that's what makes him more accurate. And then on this one, let's zoom out a little bit. Same deal. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see. Notice where the flight of that ball is on both of these. Nice, high, straight balls. The key to success for you and for your future development is being very consistent about your technique. Because Dan does some things that are unique that most coaches may or may not teach. But what he does do is those things that he does uniquely, he does the same way every single time. And that's where he sees his success. So let's look at one last clip from 60 yards. Let's see if he changes his technique with the distance. So this is a 60-yard field goal in warmups. This is a great way to gauge what is your long for that day. So you can go and tell coach, hey, we have to get to this yard line for me to have a chance to make the kick. This is really important to communicate those things with your coaches. So let's go ahead and look at his technique with 60 yards. See if there's any difference, or is it the exact same as all of his other kicks? The first thing I notice is his stance. All right, his arms are the same exact way. His eyes are locked in right there on where that ball is going to be. I know we can't see his feet, but let's watch his approach. So just like I said before, we really want to focus in on keeping that heel in line with the ball. Notice his heel is in line with that ball. Secondly, notice how tall he is, right? He's long and tall here, right? Really trying to make a straight line from his opposite shoulder to his kicking toe. Very important. The longer and taller you are, the more torque you have. You don't want to crunch when you're hitting longer field goals. You want to keep that same exact posture. Now, get to contact. One thing that a lot of you guys may struggle is when you hit bigger balls, you struggle because you're swinging so hard, you're not actually locking this leg out. Notice how straight this leg stays on contact. Right? He's here, simultaneously straighten out that leg at contact. That same pop. Many younger kickers will struggle with when they swing harder, they're not actually locking that leg and keeping it straight through the ball. And here's really the keys I want to look at. His plant leg is straight, his kicking leg is straight, and that toe is straight. The longer and the taller you are, the more torque you're going to possess, the higher you can hit that ball. And then let's just watch the finish. Notice how far he's getting downfield here. Notice the path of that leg. He's getting all the way down the field. He's taking some momentum from his steps and putting it through the ball. He's not mentally saying, I'm going to swing harder here. He's just trying to transition smoothly with his tempo to put more power into the ball. And a big thing, when you're taking a longer kick and you mentally think that you have to swing harder, you really want to frame that follow through. Notice how Dan does an incredible job of keeping this leg locked, and it's also on that straight path the entire time to the spot he originally picked out. It's really important to make sure you frame that follow through even on the longer kicks, because it allows that ball to stay on a straight line. Even though you're swinging harder, you keep that ball straighter. Whenever we swing harder, more likely we're going to lose our technique. You really want to zone in on the follow through, just like Dan does here. Notice how straight that foot is on that path of his swing. One last thing, he's not looking up too quick. Notice as those eyes are staying down a little longer, skipping through, and as his foot hits the ground, all right, so I'm looking at his foot here. As his foot hits the ground, his eyes are looking up, okay? All right, he's not in a rush to see the ball. He's working on his technique. So a couple big keys, I think, for Dan that you should take away is, one, that jab step. It comes up and down, and it's the same exact way every time. Two, notice how tall he stays through his swing. And then three is his skip, how he gets downfield so that he doesn't have to swing harder with the ball. His momentum is transitioning downfield with the swing, which is going to allow for bigger, further kicks.